Okay, welcome everybody to another episode of the Whole You podcast. I have my guest Gabby here today with me. I'm so excited to dive in. Today we're going to be talking about authenticity, our journeys of coming back to our true self and our true essence, and how that's impacted our life, and give you guys some tips and some guidance as to how maybe you can start to embark on this journey of coming back to yourself and being radically you, regardless of what others think, and how that can potentially change your life. So, yeah, you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah. Hi, guys. My name is Gabby. I'm so excited. Thank you so much for having me on here on the podcast. I love sharing my story, and I know that our stories align in such beautiful but different ways. And so I'm excited to kind of bounce off of each other. We always have the most insightful conversations all the way, back 2020 when, we were both knee deep in our health and fitness journey and recovering from that all the way into starting a business, becoming business owners, becoming entrepreneurs, and going through different pivots and twists and turns. And so, yeah, my name is Gabby. I am currently a mindset and life coach for entrepreneurs. And yeah, I'm just excited to chat with you.
Yeah, I'm so excited. Yeah, we have so many parallels in our journey. I feel like we are definitely put in each other's lives for a reason.
Yes.
So
The
beautiful.
pattern app will tell us that.
I know, right? It does. And like, it's so clear and obvious too. I feel like the more I dive into my true self, my true essence, and align myself with that, it's like these synchronicities in my life of people who are on that same frequency and who understand me on a deeper level, just kind of like naturally come into my life. I don't know if you've experienced that. I know like me and you, our relationship, of course, but it's like kind of crazy how too, when you align yourself with your true essence and your true self, you naturally start to attract things that are also aligned with that. You know what I mean?
Yeah, 100%. And I think to that, we were kind of chatting about this earlier, but the more that you know your true self, the more that you can put yourself in those situations to attract that, or to really know what is and isn't aligned for you, especially relationship wise.
Yeah.
So you can kind of, distance yourself from things that are no longer aligned, that you're like, oh, this doesn't feel good for me. Like, you know who you truly are. You can own that. You can stand in your power. You can set those boundaries that are necessary. And with that opens up so much space and opportunity for different relationships that are more fulfilling, that are more aligned, that are more supportive on the direction and journey that you're looking to go.
Yeah, 100%. Sometimes you have to clear out what no longer serves you, maybe this stuck energy or this energy that's just no longer aligned with you. Clearing that out is what's going to allow that new and aligned energy to flood in. And so we're going to be diving into kind of the hard and like not so pretty parts of the healing journey and like the coming back to yourself journey that I feel like aren't talked about enough, in the sense of, getting to know also your shadows and the pieces of you that maybe you've always deemed as not okay or unacceptable and things of that nature. But then also the fact that you also have to cut out a lot of this energy and things and kind of make some decisions that aren't easy in order for you to fully step into who you are. You know what I mean? And those processes aren't pretty. I'm definitely in one myself right now. Very deep and hard and not very beautiful as you're in it. But then when you zoom out, like later down the road, you look back and you're like, whoa, that is the best decision, or like the best thing that's ever happened to me, because it truly allowed me to clear out that energy for that new to come in, and for me to truly step into who I actually am. You know what I mean? But when you're in it, it's a little rough and it's not too pretty, right?
Yeah, for sure. Those pivots, I have really started to shift my mindset around them as like they are just like a slingshot. Like you gotta pull that back in order to really push yourself forward. And like you're saying, like none of the pulling back process is talked about enough.
Yeah.
But I think like both you and I are like super vulnerable on like everything. And so I'm really excited to
Yeah.
have this conversation because it is a vulnerable conversation and it is tough to talk about the peeling back of the layers and the shadows that you're going to be met with and the parts of yourself that you're going to have to really let go of. I think the biggest thing or the hardest thing to face is like if you want a new you, if you want a new life, you're going to have to let go of the old one. And honestly, it's not even like, I look at it as like, you're not changing into the new you per se or necessarily. You're just letting go of the old you or the old life or the
Ah,
old things that no longer align with you as you start to peel back these layers and figure out who am I truly and what are my values and what is going to align with me.
yeah.
And sometimes I feel like that can, especially for me when I was first starting, it made it almost a little bit less overwhelming that I don't need to become this whole new, like, embodied version of me. Like, I just need to let go of these things that are currently holding on to that don't no longer serve me. And that
Exactly.
can seem easier mentally, but sometimes it's harder. It's actually harder to do in your
Yeah.
life. So
Oh, totally. The act of surrender and letting go is probably the hardest journey of them all because as humans, we love to have everything in our control and we love to keep things the same because that feels safe, right? And when we start to let go, loosen our grip on these things that no longer serve us, it can feel like we're kind of losing that control a little bit. And so it's like, ooh, this isn't what I know. I'm stepping into the unknown. And so that feels very uncomfortable and scary. However, like you said, that is a huge part of any journey you're on. You kind of have to make some sacrifices in order to truly make those changes, right? It always like there's some sort of equal exchange there. Every time you make a giant change or a giant shift, you kind of have to make also a huge sacrifice because you have to again have that space and energy to do so. And a lot of the times, like you said, it comes down to shifting your identity, which is really, really hard. Because again, when we have this identity that feels safe and it's what we've always known, but we know deep down we need to let go of it. For example, I really had this identity around not loving myself and always putting myself down and criticizing myself and having eating disorders and shaming myself. And it was like a huge part of quote unquote who I am, to the point where letting that go made me almost feel like unsafe. You know what I mean? And it felt very uncomfortable to start to love myself and step into this self-acceptance because I had never known that my entire life. And I had to truly start to let go of these layers that were no longer serving me. And it kind of felt like a piece of me died. It did. I had to allow this piece of me to truly die, this identity to die off. And there's also, cycles in the healing journey of like death and rebirth and just continuous over and over and over again. And there's like this integration period as well, I feel like, after the rebirth, where you truly have to like integrate, and otherwise you can easily go back to the old self or that past identity, right? And so it's just this lifelong journey of continuously shedding layers and coming back to love or yourself and continuously opening your heart. And it's so beautiful. It's also really hard, but it's so beautiful.
yeah, I love that. I love that you shared that, huge identity shift, because that's really ultimately the whole goal of this whole entire
Yeah.
process is to shift your identity into a new higher version of yourself. And you touched on this idea of control, and that's the reason that we often stay in our lower self. That's also often why we stay stuck in our self-sabotage or our limiting patterns or old identities, is because of this need for control. And I encourage you to think about, okay, if I have this area of my life that I feel this obsessive need for control, like, you're not in control. Like, that area of your life and that identity is actually controlling you subconsciously under the hood, like, that you're not even aware of. So you kind of just sharing your experience with this old identity of that was controlling you,
Mhm.
of self-shame, of like putting yourself into this box. Like, the more that you peel back those layers, what you'll find is that identity was giving you some sort of safety. That
Mhm.
identity was filling some sort of need for you. And so it's often that you are fearful of letting it go because you're fearful of what letting that go is also going, what you're going to lose by letting that go,
Yeah,
right? Like, what are you going to lose
100%.
by letting go of, keeping yourself trapped in this box of, woe is me, I have all these problems. Like, I can totally resonate to that. Like, for me, I know that my subconscious or my unconscious would create issues for me in my life just because it knew that if I had a problem, I would get attention, I would get care, I would get like support, I would get comfort, I would get nurturance. So subconsciously in my life or unconsciously in my life, it was this shadow of woe is me, I need to create all these problems for myself, was actually my unconscious need for attention and for comfort and for care. And so when I was able to like really admit that and look at that and be like, you sneaky little, you are creating these problems for yourself in your life because you can then, mom's gonna call you and be like, oh honey, like what can I do, what do you need, and care for you. Or maybe it's your significant other is going to give you more attention because you have a problem, and so you're just creating this problem to get that attention when you don't need the problem to get attention. If you are aware of it, now that shadow is no longer controlling you. You're no longer going to be stuck in that problem, and you no longer have to trap yourself in that identity and define yourself by that problem. You can say, hey, I don't need that to get attention. How can I get the attention that I want? How can I ask for the care and the nurturance and the love and the support without there needing to be a problem attached to it? And that's how you can really break free from that need for control, being like, okay, is this identity of that I feel like I have more control actually really just controlling me? I'm not aware of it because it's happening in my subconscious, because that's what a shadow is. It's in your subconscious. So once you control awareness of that, then you can be like, oh, I see what's going on here. And you can heal the pain that shadow is holding, right? That's a version of you, for me, like a younger version of myself who wanted attention, who needed attention. And I was like, how can I get this attention? Because I'm 1 of 4. And so I'm not getting the attention that I want, or whatever it is, right? And healing the pain of that inner child that is creating this trapped identity for you, so you can peel back those layers, you can shed that identity through healing and truly step into a new one.
100%. That's so important. I feel like the root of healing almost always comes back to your childhood, and these layers that were put on you at such a young age, because a lot of it was formed at such a young age, right? And so that's the power of inner child healing and shadow works. A lot of our shadows too were obtained at childhood, in childhood, and from our parents as well. And so doing this deep inner work of kind of uncovering these layers as to why your current identity is the way it is, why your current perception of self and your perception of reality is the way it is, you can literally start to use life as this mirror for your healing. And it's so cool when you start to see everything as a mirror rather than, again, being in that victim mentality, like you were talking about before, of always feeling like, oh, this is happening to me, like constantly just being triggered and not seeing it as information, instead just internalizing all of these triggers and feeding in and enabling the same identity to just keep strengthening, right? Instead, you can use your triggers and you can use this life we have as literally a portal for your healing and self-growth and coming back to your true nature, your true self, right? Like you said, asking yourself those questions, like in the moments of you noticing your shadow being very present in a relationship, right? And it's like constantly like the same pattern keeps repeating itself, asking yourself, why? Like, why is this happening right now? What did I not receive? Or what did I feel like I didn't receive? Or what did I feel like I received that triggers? Like, what is it triggering inside of me? Maybe my younger version of myself. Like, what wounds are being brought up right now, right? So a lot of the time, the most common ones is the feeling of not being loved, not being accepted, feeling rejected, right? Feeling like you're not enough and not worthy, right? To some extent. These are all like the core wounds that a lot of us have, and it can stem back to these specific events or things that have happened to you throughout your life, that have kind of created these thoughts, which repetitive thoughts create beliefs, right? And the more we think the thoughts, the more hardwired they become, the more hardwired these beliefs become in our subconscious, to where we're literally searching for proof for that belief over time. Subconsciously, we're literally looking and searching for proof that we're not worthy, proof that we're unlovable, proof that we're not enough. Like constantly searching for it, even though obviously that's not serving us, right? We just have to get to the root of like why those beliefs are there in the first place. Why are those thoughts there in the first place? And that's really like the basis of healing and like self-awareness. It's literally just becoming aware, like conscious of the unconscious, right? And when you do that, man, it's a fun journey.
Yeah, that's what I like to say is personal growth. That's all personal growth is. It's
Yeah.
expanding your consciousness. Like it's
Mhm.
growing your consciousness so you can expand who you know yourself to be instead of like trapping yourself into this box of who you think you need to be. And when you trap yourself into that box, the smaller that box is and the more that you trap yourself in there, the more shadows that you're going to have, because that means that your shadows are, that means that your consciousness is shrinking, which means your unconscious is expanding and growing. And that's when things start to get really, really dicey, right? Because
Yeah.
things are happening in your unconscious, then you're met with more limiting beliefs, more sabotaging cycles, more, negative emotions that you're struggling with. And so expanding your consciousness is really the game. That's really like what the skill that you need to learn if you want to start really doing this work, because right, your shadows are inside of your unconscious mind. And so like you were saying, it's really hard to know what your shadows are. Like if you're listening to this and you're like, what the like I don't even know how I figure this out about myself, like I don't even know how I figure out what a shadow is. I love this conversation of talking about what the mirrors are, because this is where someone can really start doing the work. This is when you can really start expanding your consciousness, because your mirrors in your current reality, in your current world, are going to be what you're going to use to start doing this work. You just need to start being so present in your life, in your day to day, that you're able to recognize what these mirrors are reflecting back to you. So you can start becoming consciously aware of it, expanding your consciousness and being like, okay, this is something that I don't necessarily like about myself. And so that's what a shadow is. A shadow is something that, probably it's like a sabotaging cycle, like a personality trait that you're like, why am I like this? Or like something that you have maybe thought that you need to like fix about yourself for a while, or like an inner critic voice, or like an emotion that you don't love, like anger or guilt or shame that you're feeling. And start to really just get curious about it. Ask yourself these questions. And when you get curious, when you start asking yourself these questions, that's when you can, like you were saying, find the root of it, find where the shadow was created. Because I'm a firm believer that shadows are inherently bad.
Mhm.
Shadows are not bad parts of you, quote unquote. There are no parts of you that are bad. The shadow is currently manifesting in your life in an unwanted way because it's carrying pain. And so when you heal that pain, now that part of yourself, that shadow part. So for example, we're going back to the example we were using before, that part of yourself who desired care and nurturance and forgiveness, probably like the big ass heart that you have, that was pushed into the shadows, who, because of the pain that she carried, because she didn't get that when she was a child.
Exactly.
So now it's manifesting in this unwanted way by like creating sabotage in your life, or self-shame or whatever it is, to get that attention. And so shadows aren't inherently bad. They're just carrying burdens, they're carrying pains, they're manifesting, they're showing up in your life in unwanted ways, whether that's through limiting beliefs, whether that's through negative emotions, or whether that's through sabotaging habits. But you can start to use mirrors in your life to figure out what these shadows are, or where these shadow parts lie. And so I like to say that there's like three major mirrors. You have yourself. So yourself is going to be the beliefs, the emotions, the actions that we were just kind of talking about. The second one is you have your relationships, which is going to be the biggest mirrors. So in any relationship that you have where there's either judgment showing up, where you're judging someone else, or you're jealous of someone else and what they have. Judgment and jealousy are going to be two major key points in those relationships that you can use as mirrors, because all that judgment and jealousy are projections of your inner world. So really like hone in, is there a relationship where you find judgment or jealousy coming in, or toxic traits or habits showing up or coming in? Also relationships being not just with other people, whether it's intimate or partners or family, but also relationships in the sense of like, what's your relationship to money? What's your relationship with your body, to food, to drugs, to sex, to alcohol, to these things where we can develop really toxic relationships with, and why? Maybe relationship with social media, a great one. So yourself, your relationships, and then also specifically for entrepreneurs is like your business is one of the best mirrors that you can use. Are you overworking yourself? Do you need to have hyper control inside of your business? How are you showing up as a leader inside of your business? Is this like some wounded leadership coming from the place of like dominance, or leadership coming from, a healthier place from like within? Is it like, are you purpose driven, or are you being ego driven in your business right now? And where's that showing up? Anywhere that your ego is showing up, underneath of that, behind of that is a shadow, because your ego is really just protecting you from that shadow part. So yeah, those three major mirrors. And if you're not a business owner or entrepreneur, you can really just look at how you work or what your work habits are. You can use that as a mirror as well. So yeah, I know that was a lot.
No, I love that. That's so important. So, so important. Like all those things you touched on, like literally hit the nail on the butt, like spot on. And it's so true. Like, especially, I heard this quote that was a few months ago, I think in yoga or something, that we are not who we think we are. We are not who they think we are. We are who we think they think we are. Meaning that we aren't who we perceive ourselves to be, like, a coach and, this and that and this, all these labels. We are not who other people perceive us to be in their own view. We're literally other people. When we walk into a room, what do we perceive everybody else to see of us? When we walk into a new friendship or somebody we just met, what thoughts go through our head of like, oh, do they like me? Am I accepted by them? And all these thoughts, right? That we have instantly, the stories that we start to tell ourselves in social situations. That is such a gateway for you to understand what you believe about yourself. All of these thoughts and beliefs that start to creep up in your relationships, especially. And I really believe relationships are such an amazing, they are kind of the foundation of life, right? Like our connections with others. Well, my human design is like really based on like community and connection and all of that. However, I really believe that like community and connection and collaboration is essential for a good quality of life, right? And everybody's way of going about that looks different, right? However, if you have constant tension and like just struggles going on in your relationships, it's a really good idea to kind of just dig inward and really start to just have this introspection as to how am I currently perceiving this person to view me, and really digging into that. And I feel like that's just a perfect gateway to, again, get to know, like you said, those shadows, those layers of you that are kind of sabotaging not only yourself and your personal relationship with you, but also your relationship with others potentially, right? It's probably creating this like conflict that doesn't actually need to be there, and like constantly being triggered and like reacting to the triggers constantly, right? I know that was the case for me, and especially my romantic relationships. Before I started diving into this deep inner work, I was like so unaware of my patterns and of my triggers and all of these subconscious, unconscious behaviors. I was literally just sleepwalking. Like I literally just walked through life, not ever tapping into my conscious self. And this led me to so many struggles, to the point where I literally pushed everybody out of my life. I had no friends, just my boyfriend, because I had all of these beliefs that I wasn't going to be accepted. I was going to be rejected. I was going to be judged, etc., with especially females. And I know we wanted to dive into like sisterhood and the power of sisterhood and how it can also be so healing in this journey. And for me, it was literally life-changing, because again, I had so many deep core wounds surrounding especially relationships with other women. And in reality, it was literally just a mirror as to how I was feeling from within. And that was reflecting in my relationships with women to the point where, again, I literally pushed it all out. And welcoming that back in, opening my heart back up and starting to rewrite the script and the narrative around what it means to have sisters and like true friendships and what I want that to look like, feel like, all of it. My life has like not been the same since, like since welcoming that back in. And I just like want to scream on the top of my lungs.
Yes. Oh my gosh. I love all of this so much. I love talking about sisterhood. And I think to just start off with what you were saying in the beginning, where how we perceive ourselves is really how we think others, what we think others think of us.
Yeah.
Like that is 100% your ego. Like that's all that your ego cares about. And so like I was saying is like really recognizing, okay, this is your ego talking. Whatever that voice is saying in your head about how you think others are perceiving you, that is your ego talking. So great, huge. Behind all of that is a shadow, is your true self.
Yeah.
And this is how we start to find who our authentic self is by saying, okay, where's my ego showing up, trying to put out and perform to be and conform to what we think others want to see or who others want us to be. And then recognizing, okay, behind that voice is my true self, is my authentic self. And so how do I let that come through and shine? And especially to bounce off that idea of relationships specifically, or really just any relationship. I actually wrote this in my notes section of my phone this morning. So perfect. Because loneliness is something I struggle with too. And I'm not going to like sit here and be fake and be like, I don't still struggle with loneliness. I think it's something that a lot of business owners and entrepreneurs struggle with when you run your own business. But it can root back to like way before I even started a business, and I was struggling with this. And I was mostly struggling with like intimacy in any relationship, not just like with a partner, but like intimacy in friendships and like really feeling that connection that I craved and that I wanted. And it truly was, number one, because I didn't know who I was. I didn't know my authentic self to be able to like show up as all of me. I didn't love myself enough to be able to feel loved by others. So I think that's the first thing. But I think the second thing, like you were saying, is people in your life will be really, really triggering if you're not conscious enough, if you're not consciously aware. So you will go into every single relationship with your guard up if you aren't conscious, if you aren't doing this inner work, if you aren't sure of yourself. And so what I was finding is that all of my relationships were extremely triggering to me because I was in this chronic state of a trauma response where anything in that relationship created a fight or flight response. Fight meaning I got really defensive in that relationship, and just like the way in which I communicated was not like, no one would fucking want to be in my energy because I was in fight energy, like trying to protect an inner wound that I had around myself. Or I would flight and I would isolate and I would be like, isolate myself. And that's what created the loneliness, because flighting was usually my go-to response.
Yeah.
So that's why it's important to go into these shadows and heal the wounds of them, because you will continue to stay in a fight or flight response in any relationship, not just in sisterhood specifically. But for me, for anyone listening, like a lot of my sisterhood wounds came from one, being an athlete. Like a lot of my sisterhood wounds were very competitive because I felt threatened by, other women. And one coming from being an athlete where basically I was raised competing against women. Like that's literally how I was raised, was you are better than her, so you get playing time, you're praised, like you're a better athlete than she is. Like that's literally how I was raised. And so breaking away from that kind of conditioning or idea is something that like I've had to continue working on. And now I know that like one of my biggest shadows is the shadow of dominance, which I actually learned from the Gene Keys. I knew it, but I didn't have the words for it until I started doing Gene Keys work. And alchemizing my shadow of dominance has healed so many of my relationships and healed me so much. But that's the first thing that caused a lot of sisterhood wounds for me. The second thing that caused a lot of sisterhood wounds for me was I actually went to an all-girls school in high school. And obviously the core value of my all girl school was sisterhood. However, it was a fucking not sisterhood. Okay. It was just not. They tried, and I'll give them credit for trying. But if I could go into that institution and be like, you got this all fucking wrong. Like, you guys are literally just, there's so much wounding in that space. Like, wearing uniform. Let's just have the uniform conversation real quick, because I think people have like very different views on it. I at one point thought, oh, like when I was in it, I was like, oh, the uniform is great, because then there's no like comparison to like who has what, who dresses better than who. Like, there was no body image comparison. But then all that created was comparison in other things. So it was like, who can achieve more, who has the better grades. And that's what also just continued this, who is the student, who's like the athlete, who's not the athlete, who's the this, who's the that. So then there was like competition in other ways that wasn't necessarily revolving around looks per se, or necessarily. But that's created a lot of like dominance wounds there, which I know created like a lot of my high achiever wounds, and right, attaching my identity to my success. A lot of that came from that environment. And then also from that, like, because we were wearing uniforms, we had no way of really having any type of self-expression that was like unique to us. So really, there's as you start doing this work, there's a lot of like nuance there. But then like I share, this information with my sister and my mom, and they see it completely differently. They're like, well, I didn't go to a school where I had to wear uniforms, and there was this, and there was that, and there was this, and there was that. So diving into your own conditioning is like so important. But healing that wound of dominance has been so transformational for my relationships and my sisterhood, because now it's no longer a me game like it used to be, like my ego wanted it to be, but it's more of like, life is about we, not about me. And oh my gosh, healing this dominance wound has just been shifted my identity from a lower self that was so ego driven, that was like so identity attached to my success, to more of like releasing all of that, letting go of that, and taking this wound, or sorry, this shadow of dominance, and recognizing that underneath of like my need to achieve and attaching my identity to being the best person in the room, when I could heal the wounds around that from my conditioning, whether it was as an athlete or whatever in high school, and seeing that behind that, there's like this version of me who's super self-empowered, who is super driven to be the best version of myself, is an incredible gift that I have that like not everyone has, right? Not everyone in this world has. That's an incredible gift that I have. It was just being used it was manifesting in my life in a really toxic way, manifested my eating disorder, needing to have the best body, manifesting into my business, being on this like a rat race to success, and needing to, be the best in the room, manifesting my relationships as being super competitive and toxic, right? This is what I'm talking about like that shadow of dominance isn't inherently bad. It was just really wounded. And when I was able to heal the wounds of that, I'm able to see, no, actually behind that shadow, inside of that shadow, there's the version of me who's really self-empowered, who wants to become the best version of myself, who's committed to that, not to be better than everyone else, but because I know that as the best version of myself, that's how my soul is going to really be able to have the best experience of life here, and also help change and impact the world. Like, if I don't become the best version of myself, my soul is not living out its purpose here. And so it really changed, again, the me narrative of I need to be better than you on this like self-improvement journey, to no, I'm on this self-improvement journey because I want to pave the way for you to do the exact same thing. And that's so the celebration and collaboration that you get into, where like, no, I'm on my journey of becoming a 1% woman because I want every woman to become a 1% woman. Right?
I love that. And I love that word you use, alchemize, because that's literally what you did. You alchemized your shadows, you alchemized your pain, you alchemized everything into love. And that's what this life is about. Like, I feel like that's what this journey is about, is just like continuously coming back to love, which when you come back to love, you're coming back to your natural true self, your true essence, right? And you can always alchemize it to power rather than just continuing these cycles of pain and suffering and pushing people out and not letting love in, right? And continuing to put the walls up and like masks on and things of that nature, you know? Breaking the
Yeah.
pattern, like breaking the pattern and starting to alchemize it into a new pattern of love and growth and abundance. And when you do that, like you said, you're also helping others, because when you're being the fullest, just you being the fullest expression of you and healing is so healing for others, everybody around you. Like your energy truly rubs off on the people around you, even if they're not like, for me, even like not just my clients, but the people in my life, in my circle, I've noticed that me being the fullest expression of me and continuing to do this deep healing work is literally just rubbing off on them, and they're also evolving and growing. I'm like taking them with me, you know, like, and then too, in my coaching just continues to evolve and grow. And the way I'm able to serve people is so much more coming from a place of love and authenticity and like willingness to just serve with purpose, which is just so beautiful. Again, when you're able to alchemize that pain, that shadow, that whatever it is into love, you know, and purpose. Um,
Yeah.
it's so beautiful. And with the walls too, I love that you brought up, I actually went to a uniform school as well. And I like didn't even connect the dots until you just said that. And I'm like, whoa, like that's great. Like that makes so much sense too. And especially with it being an all girls school, I think that that's really, yeah, that can be a huge layer and can create a whole lot of like wounds surrounding sisterhood and that comparison factor. And there's so many, I relate so hard. I didn't go to an all girls school, but just through my young life of being a kid and like into teenage years especially, there was so much competition and comparison and like mean girl groups and all the things that really just like completely had created this narrative around women that, yeah, like women compare to each other, women compete with each other. Like it's always going to be this game of like always feeling resistance. And like there's these walls of who's better. And the truth is like, no, like when you start to see everybody as equal and you start to truly like let the walls down, let the walls down and truly like take the masks off, that's when the love can actually come in. And you're also able to like truly let the love out, you know, not only in your romantic relationships, but especially with women, which I feel like woman to woman intimacy, like you were saying, intimacy wounds are actually so common. And it has a lot to do with how we're able to sit with ourselves and be with ourselves and allow love in from ourselves, right? It has so much to do with the intimacy we have with our emotions and with our true self, like not allowing that and having all these walls and masks up. Of course, we're not going to be able to be intimate, right? And I totally relate. Like there was a period of time where I wouldn't even look people in the eye. I would avoid eye contact at all costs. And I literally was just constantly wearing these masks and speaking in a way that I knew wasn't me. It was more so like a filter to what I thought they would accept me as. And what I realized was that was actually pushing people away entirely. I was literally pushing the love out of my life. And until I truly just came back to no filter, taking the filter off, letting the walls down, taking the masks off, and just being radically me, it's like I have my tribe now. And the love that I'm able to give and receive now is just so deep that I never thought was even possible. I didn't even know what
Yeah.
love was or intimacy was, honestly, until this last year. So I had never experienced it to that depth before. You know what I mean?
Yeah, 100%. And I love that you brought up this conversation of intimacy even further, because like you said, it's into me I see. So if you can't see
Yeah.
into yourself because you have all these walls up on, going in to your darkness, and you're not willing or able to do that, like no one else is going to be able to see you for who you truly are if
Mm-hmm.
you're not able to see you for who you truly are. And that's what intimacy is. Into me I see is being able to see you
Yeah.
for who you truly are. So really bringing down those walls. And when the biggest block to intimacy is fear. Like
Mm-hmm.
it's fear of, if they truly see me, what are they going to think? If they see me
Mm-hmm.
truly, what's going to happen? What are they going to think? And
Yeah.
if you are struggling to truly see yourself, are you scared? Are you scared of what's going to happen if you truly embody your authentic self? What is the fear behind showing up authentically? What's the fear behind
Yeah.
seeing you? Is it bringing up pain from your past?
Yeah.
And this is like where the work really does get hard and really does get tough, is because it's going to require you to push through those fears, to have the courage to go in and feel through them. And I love that you are talking so much about love.
Mm-hmm.
Fear is the exact opposite. Fear is the opposite of love, right? And so if you're letting fear block you from going inward and seeing and feeling your pain, you're never going to be able to access the depths of love that you want to access,
Yeah.
because emotions work on a spectrum. So if you don't allow yourself to go inward and feel the depths of your pain, no matter how fucking hard it is, you're not going to feel the depths of love, of joy, of enlightenment, of peace, of
Yeah.
freedom. You have to be able to
Mm.
feel the old ones. Just like we're talking about, like beliefs and thoughts in your mind that you have to let go and shed the old layers of your identity, you also have to let go of old emotions, because
Yeah.
with every memory of your past, every like trauma or whatever that has created these limiting beliefs, they also have an emotion attached to them that is being stored in your body. Emotions are stored in your body. And so you have this neurological programming of thoughts that are controlling you, but you also have this physiological programming of energy, of emotions that are controlling you and keeping you stuck in
Mm-hmm.
old identities. So it's not just about doing the mindset work of like releasing the beliefs, but also releasing those emotions. And once you let go of those negative emotions, the fear, the lack, the scarcity, the shame, the guilt, the grief, letting yourself actually do that work that's hard is where you're going to get the key to access love
Yeah.
and be able to
Yeah.
truly open your heart. But we don't
Totally.
give ourselves that key to access true deep love because we're afraid.
Mm-hmm.
We're afraid
Exactly.
of that intimacy.
Yeah. And that's kind of the paradox of it as well, because if you think about it, that's what we had been searching for all along. We had been searching for love. We had been searching for acceptance. We had been searching for this depth, right? And that's why we've created all these patterns to protect ourselves and these shadows and all of that. But on the other side of the fear is where the love is where the depth is where almost exactly what you need always is on the other side of that fear. And again, alchemized fear is love. Alchemized grief is peace. Alchemized any emotion, any lower vibration emotion can be alchemized into the higher vibration emotions, right? But it takes actually feeling them and accepting them and allowing them. And this kind of goes into the full spectrum, right? Your full spectrum self is also all of these things, your shadows, your lower vibration emotions, allowing it all because it's part of you. We separate ourselves from it and resist it and push it away, then we're literally rejecting a piece of us, right? Whereas if we allow like the full spectrum so that we can work together to like alchemize into again love, then we're just continuously coming back to love every single day. And that's what's so beautiful about the healing journey is it's literally just this continuous journey of opening your heart and coming back to love over and over again, because we're always going to go through shit. But the more you actually like sit with your shit and allow the shit and like become the alchemist of your life, then you literally just like, it can be this fun journey of continuously opening up, continuously learning and growing and evolving. And you don't have to be the victim anymore. You can be the
Yeah.
victor, right?
Yes. I love that. And I love that you brought up, pushing your shadows away
Yeah,
because of fear, because, you know, it goes to that saying that what you resist persists. So the more that
exactly.
you are focused on resisting and pushing away these parts of yourself or this pain, the more that it's going to persist in your life. What
Yeah.
you give energy to, like you were saying earlier, like what you focus on, you will find evidence for in your life. So if you are so
Mhm.
focused on resisting and fighting your inner critic and running away from your pain and trying to hide it, the more that it's going to show up for you in your life, the more conscious,
Yeah.
like that, the more that it's going to sabotage you, frankly. And so stop resisting it and just start facing it, start looking at it, start caring for it. It's just like your pain, your shadows are an inner child version of you. Just like a child, the more that you tell it no, the louder and more fucking annoying it's going to get. That's what your
Yeah.
shadows are doing because it's a younger version of you. It is literally a part of you. And so the more that you resist it, the more that you tell it no, the more that you try to push it away, the louder that it's going to get. And
Yeah.
because it needs and wants your attention, right? Like we
Mhm.
were talking about earlier. And so really just going to it and facing it and meeting it, and that can begin this process of alchemy. And I love that you touched on with every emotion it can be alchemized into low vibration emotion. It can be alchemized into a higher vibration emotion, because I struggled with grief last year a lot, and one of the keys that really unlocked my healing with this was grief is a funny one because right, once you experience grief, you really aren't ever going to not experience grief. It's a matter of being able to give yourself the permission to, whenever grief does come up, optimize it, right? And not
Yeah.
seeing it as like this big dark cloud that you need to hide under.
Yeah.
um and so, for me, when I lost my dad in 2020, April 2022, and so grief comes up for me from time to time, obviously, as it should, as it would. And either like I got to this point where grief was coming up for me, and whenever it would come up, I was like, it was dark clouds for days in my
Yeah.
life and in my mind. And I was like, this can't be the rest of my life. Like, I cannot do this where whenever something hits me, I'm just like done, down for the count, ready to go to bed at like 9 a.m. because I experienced grief. And
Yeah.
so I learned, I watched, it was like, I don't know his last name, but do you know like Brady in the mastermind,
Hmm.
the breathwork
Yeah.
facilitator? He did this presentation one time. He talked about grief, and he was like, the depths of your grief is literally all that it is the depths of the love that you had for whatever that was. And so
Yeah.
now whenever I experience grief for my dad, I honor that because I'm allowed to grieve my
Yeah.
dad. But then with every time I do that, I'm like, the reason that you are so fucking sad right now, or that you're grieving so hard, is because you loved him so much. And so really just turning that to, like, every time I feel those heavy emotions, it's like these emotions are the exact same emotions of love. And when I can really, like, shift the thoughts and the beliefs now to start channeling the different emotions of love, like,
Hmm.
it it's healing. Like,
Yeah.
that's the work. That's the
Yeah.
process. And,
Hmm.
grief is not the only emotion that you can do that with. Even if it's like anxiety, I talk about this with a lot of my clients. Like, anxiety, we all face it, we all feel it.
Hmm.
Anxiety is literally just an emotion. It's all
Yeah.
being driven by the thoughts.
Yeah.
Anxiety is emotion, is fear trying to keep you safe. What
Yeah.
is this anxiety trying to keep you safe from?
Mm.
When you can rewrite that story, now you can start shifting the emotion.
Yeah.
Maybe it's
100%.
excitement. Maybe you shift it to excitement, or maybe you shift it into courage to overcome the fear that the anxiety is having. Maybe whatever it
Excitement.
is in your
Yeah.
situation.
Yeah.
Um, so I love that.
Yeah, I love that. I love that so much. And I love how you brought that example too, because having more like examples, I feel like it's easier for people to not feel alone in the emotions that they're feeling, especially attached. Because like we were talking about too, with attaching emotions to an event or to something that happened, right? The only way we actually, and it's an ongoing healing process, right? It's not like you're ever healed, especially when it comes to like losing somebody in your life, right? Like you're never going to just fully be healed from that. Like you said, there's going to be waves of these emotions, and that's okay. And I think that just comes back to, again, accepting and nurturing and loving the full spectrum of you, which also means the full spectrum of your emotions, and being able to ride the waves of your emotions. And I just love like intimacy with emotions, because we literally get to feel. Like it's a gift we get to feel these emotions. It's a gift we get to experience and express and be, because if we didn't experience these lower vibration emotions, we wouldn't be evolving and growing either. So like you said, in the depths of these emotions is how we also reach the depths of love and abundance and joy, and these are all these higher vibration emotions, right? The deeper we can go into our darkness, the deeper we can go into our light and our power, all by alchemizing it. And in order to truly start to heal, we have to feel, and in order to truly feel these depth or heights of heights, we have to also feel the lowest of lows. And again, I really feel like we kind of have to experience it all. And they're all here for a reason. Like all of these struggles and challenges and things we face as humans, it's all there for a purpose if we allow purpose to come into it, right?
Yes. Oh my gosh, I love that so much. I love that. That was a good one. I feel like our souls were came here to become human and to feel emotion. Like literally, I firmly believe that like that's the only reason that your soul is here, is to feel specific emotions. Why do we do anything in our life? Why do we get into a relationship? Why do we start the business? Why do we try to make the money? Why do we, wear certain clothes? Why do we literally do anything in our life? It's to feel a certain way.
Yeah.
And right now, a lot of us are doing all these things to feel safe. And that's like literally the only reason that we're doing them. And so they're all being driven by feelings of fear or lack or scarcity or whatever.
Yeah.
And when you're able to kind of alchemize those negative feelings, or just recognize that like your soul was here to that's why your soul's here, is to feel through the depths of the negative emotions, because that's what the human experience is giving your soul the safe space to feel through those negative emotions, to go through your shit, to experience the highest of highs of your emotions.
Yeah.
To feel the full freedom, the full peace, the full love.
Yeah. Exactly. Alchemize your pain into power, into purpose, right? Like we're always going to have, like, life isn't just this beautiful, magical, like 24/7 always feeling good once you start your healing journey. Like, yes, you grow and evolve, but it's like you're going to continue to face things that are challenging, and it's chaotic. Like life is chaotic, and like it's so beautiful at the same time. The chaos is beautiful in the sense that, again, every single time, if you allow it, it can literally launch you forward. Just like we were talking about with the slingshot, right? It's like that pulling back in order to launch forward. And it's continuously just wanting, like the universe, life, God, whatever you believe, wants you to succeed. It wants you to grow. It wants you to evolve. It wants you to continuously come back to love. Right. And so that's what it's doing. It's literally giving you these roadblocks and these bumps and these challenges to make you stronger and to make you more evolved and like learn lessons and grow and continuously just remind you of your power if you allow it, again, because we only receive what we allow. And that goes for everything. Like if we're having these walls up in relationships, and we're just wanting love, we're wanting depth, we're wanting acceptance, but then we're having these walls up and we're not accepting ourselves and we're not loving ourselves. People are only able to love you and accept you to the level that you do for yourself, right? People are only able to be there for you and your emotions and your depths to the level that you do for yourself. And so it's all a mirror. I feel like this is like full circle moment of this conversation. But it's all a mirror. Like you can truly learn so much by life by facing your shit, the depths of your shit, facing it all, the full spectrum of you, and no longer resisting these pieces of you, accepting the full spectrum. And that right there is like how you truly get to the root of who you are, is by uncovering maybe who you're not anymore, what layers you want to let go of, what layers, are just programming that aren't actually yours to hold anymore. And also who you actually are, because the truth is, you just have to remember. You're not learning who you are. You're literally remembering. It's literally in you. Like the higher version of you is you. It's just uncovering her, right? Again, peeling back those layers and taking off the masks that are covering her up. You're just remembering. And yeah.
Yeah, she's just trapped in the shadows right now, but she can come into the light if you let her, if you take the masks off, peel back the layers, heal the pain that she's hiding behind.
Yeah.
She's in there. And like you said, I think it's healing is a lifelong thing. But it can be what's the word? You can collapse time by really going inward and doing the work, surrounding yourself with others who are doing the work, and expanding your consciousness, using the mirrors in your life instead of just sitting victim to it. And then, once you learn how to do the work, right, the process of it becomes easier. And that's what I also want everyone to know. Like, I've been doing the work for a year now, and it was definitely super, not just harder at first, but like over fucking whelming. Like shit would come up and I'd be like, because like you were saying, like shit comes up, you peel back these layers, but then you're like, what do I do with this now? Like, what do I do now? How do I integrate this? Like, how do I change? Once reps, I say, quote unquote, practice makes perfect when it comes to revealing the more authentic version of you. You have to try things on. You have to try things out.
Yeah.
And see what fits, see what aligns. It's not going to, be easy at first, but the more that you do it, the more that you know the tools, the grounding techniques that always bring you back to your truth and who you are. You're able to hear the voices in your head a little bit more clearly. So it's not like a fucking chaos monkey mind in there.
Yeah.
And, really continue to expand that consciousness, ask yourself the hard questions, and develop the trust that I think is really important to do this work, and the courage that's really important to do this work. It builds and builds and builds over time the more that you do it. So just wanted to share that.
I love that. Yeah, it's not easy. It's not easy, but it's so fucking worth it. Like worth it.
Life-changing. Life-changing.
Yes, life-changing. And
not just for you, but for everyone, for the collective.
For everyone. Exactly. And I say this literally every podcast, and I'm going to continue to do so, that the core of everybody's purpose is to be the fullest expression of themselves. That's the core of your purpose, because when you do that and you're in alignment with that, you're going to be doing the things that bring you joy. You're going to be doing the things that are your strengths and your passions. You're naturally going to attract opportunities that are aligned with you. And it has nothing really, like, your purpose does have somewhat to do with your career, but I feel like there's this huge emphasis on that can be confusing, in the sense of, if you're not in alignment with who you truly are, you're never going to feel purpose driven in your business, right? Or if you're working for someone, or whatever the case might be. It really comes down to you being in alignment with your true self. And in that, your relationships, your career, your life, all these areas of life will follow naturally, and yeah, it's a beautiful journey of alchemizing your pain into purpose, and seeing that on the other side of that fear is exactly what you need. And just try it out for a week. Like, let down your walls, just radically be you, and see what opportunities flood into your life. Even a day. A day. Let down all your walls, radically be you, and just see how it feels, what happens. Just try it out and let us know how it goes.
Yeah. Yeah. Try on different forms of expression. And also I think the thing on that day that you're being radically you, I want you to use the mirrors as well, because I think that that's a
Yeah.
really good first step to start off with is
Agreed.
the mirrors. They're going to be huge
Yeah.
for helping you figure out. Like, I know for me, like, if someone were to say, like, put down your walls and be all you, I'd be like, I don't know who the fuck I am. But the mirrors will
Yeah.
help you figure that out. The mirrors will help
Yeah.
me figure that out.
Yeah, true that, true that. Start to recognize, like we were talking about before, recognize your triggers, recognize when you're feeling maybe anxious or fearful, like start to feel your emotions in your body and where you feel them and how it affects you and how you tend to respond to it. So take advantage of that gap between the thought and the reaction, or the feeling and the reaction, right? Because a lot of the times we are in these unconscious patterns in regards to that. Like, for example, anxiety is a huge one where people just tend to avoid it. So they'll go to scrolling or they'll go to drinking or whatever the case might be. And noticing these patterns so that you can actually start to sit with it and recognize, wait a second, is this just fear creeping up and I'm avoiding something? And on the other side of that fear is exactly what I need. Am I not doing something? Am I procrastinating something? And you know what I mean? And it's like, you can start to actually take aligned action in your life that way too, that aligns with you and like what you actually want to do, rather than just staying stuck in these programs and patterns that are sabotaging you. You know what I mean? Actually
Yeah.
sitting with your emotions can do a lot, you know?
Yeah. Stop letting your life be just like run on autopilot, which anxiety, you turn to coping mechanism. This, you turn to coping mechanism. And that's what it means to expand your consciousness. And like you're saying, sit in that gap. I call it the vortex
Mm-hmm.
between trigger and response.
Mm-hmm.
You have the ability to expand the time or open up that vortex between I'm triggered. What am I going to do now?
Yeah.
Sit in the vortex, which usually means
Yeah.
sit in your emotions and feel them instead of just
Avoid.
suppressing them, avoiding
Yeah.
them, coping with them, distracting yourself from them.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yes. I love that so much. I feel like this really touched on like everything,
Oh,
all
girl.
the deepest parts of coming back to your true self and truly alchemizing your pain into power. That's what I'm going to name this podcast.
I love
Alchemizing
it.
pain into power or purpose. I love it. Well, thank you so much for being here. Is there anything else you want to tap into or chat about today?
No, I think that this is great, and I hope that it was helpful for anyone listening. I know that it was just therapeutic for me to chat
Yeah.
about with you.
Yeah.
I
Me
love being in
too.
your energy.
You too. I love you, girls. So good to catch up with you. And yeah, thank you to everybody who tuned in. And yeah, hope y'all enjoyed. Have a good week.
Bye.
Bye.